Hey there! Here I review movies and television shows, and today I want to talk about Despicable Me 4. It's a family comedy continuing the Minions franchise. This time, Gru and his family are forced into witness protection because of an old nemesis called Maxime. Mike White and Ken Daurio wrote the story, and Chris Renaud and Patrick Delage co-directed the film. Steve Carell stars as Gru, Will Ferrell features as Maxime the villain, and Pierre Coffin voices the hilarious Minions. Alright, to begin, I want to say that this film isn't all that friendly to new viewers. If you know Gru and his family, you're in for a good time. The story picks up where the last film left off and continues the family's wacky adventures. If you aren't familiar with the franchise, the film drops you in the middle of a lot of pre-established characters, relationships, and self-references and doesn't give you any time to catch up. You don't really need to understand what's going on to enjoy the slapstick humor and visual gags, but it does make the experience significantly better. The film is filled with a lot of physical comedy and humor in general. Between the Minions acting like childish morons and Gru's inability to be normal, there's a ton to laugh at and enjoy. Even the side stories end up having a ton of hilarious moments, like the Terminator woman hunting Lucy across the grocery store. There's also a bit of comedic action in the form of a heist, and a supervillain fight between Gru and Maxime for the finale. There's a good bit of tension during the action moments, and they know how to keep the audience on their toes. The cast does a decent job with the humor and the material, but don't get anything overly memorable to do. There's a lot of returning characters who get to do a bit of stereotypical work and a lot of awkward comedy from Steve Carell. Ferrell comes in with a bad French accent and puts on a forgettable performance. He's given a few silly lines and tries to sing along with Carell at the end, but everything from him felt a little half-hearted. Carell does his usual shtick and it works well enough. Kristen Wiig and the other returning family members are relegated to background characters for most of the film. They do a good job of the lines they're given, but rarely get to speak. The Minions are once again the highlight of the cast. They're both funny with their gibberish, and they manage to convey a ton of meaning through tone alone. Pierre Coffin had me laughing constantly. Visually, the film is excellent. The animation work is top-notch in its movement and with its visual comedy. The style allows for great exaggerated expressions and for physical humor that otherwise wouldn't work. The journey takes place in a rich neighborhood, but features a ton of extra locations like Gru's old high school, the AVL headquarters, remote locations around the world, and a federal maximum security prison. For standout moments, they had visual gags like the minion who gets stuck in the vending machine, action moments like Gru going on a heist or fighting against Maxime. They even had a few emotional beats where the characters displayed a lot of emotion. All of it was hilarious and a ton of fun. The visual journey is definitely the best aspect of the film. The music is made up of instrumentals with the occasional original song thrown in. The instrumentals come in all sorts of different genres and styles and do a lot to support the journey. They add a little bit of emotion, some hype, and add a smidgen of flavor during the heist and climax. It doesn't stand out much though. It often sits right underneath most of the scenery and only takes the lead in a few moments. The one big number that Carell and Ferrell do comes at the very end of the film and has little impact, and the only other song that actually stuck out was the intro song with Gru driving up. They definitely had better music in some of the past films. Which leads me into the film's big negatives, most of which come from the writing. The story is a mishmash of 4 different stories and tries to shoehorn in too many characters, too much action, and doesn't connect them in a meaningful way. Each of the storylines has a lot of the punch taken out of them by the lack of screen time, and as a result, none of the voice actors get much of a chance to shine. It's almost like they took 4 different episodes of a show and jammed them together to make a movie. None of the characters get the development they deserve, and they end up getting pulled in 50 directions at once. The experience is less than memorable, and if you think about the story at all, you'll find yourself pulled out of the experience. Personally, I did find myself laughing a lot at the humor, but the story isn't that great. The cast does what they can with it, and the visual journey is actually quite good, but the music isn't all that special. If you're already a fan of the Minions films, this one is worth watching at least once. It's a lot of fun, and you can easily show it to your kids. They'll have a blast with it. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 5 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye!